Hello and welcome to this Substance Designer tutorial video. In this video, we're going to take a look at creating reusable functions. So if you've been following along so far, we've just created this simple function here that we actually created on the opacity parameter of a blend node. And so we've set this up to be what I would say is hard-coded, meaning that we have this very specific input here and this very specific integer value that we're checking for so that we can output either a 1 or a 0. And that works great, but what if I wanted to create this as a function that can be reused in different projects? So I don't have to keep redoing this time and time again. So here we're going to create our own custom function. So to do that, I'm just going to do it as part of my package. So what I'm going to do is right click here on my package and I'm going to choose new and I'm going to choose a substance function. And so this creates just a function graph for me. Now I could actually create a new package that contains nothing but a bunch of function graphs. And so this could be a way for me to create or house all of my function graphs together. I don't recommend placing it here within this particular substance if this is something that I want to have as, a reusable part of my substance library, because it'd be very hard to find, where it is in this particular metal floor rusty substance. But in this case, maybe we're thinking this as, well, it's something that's going to be, reused often throughout, this graph. So, we'll place it into here. But you could, like I said, easily create this as part of an empty substance package. All right, so, well, we have this untitled function. All right, let's go back to this graph here, and let's go to our opacity. Here's our opacity, and I'll click this edit function button, and I'm just going to left click and just drag to select all of these nodes, and I'll just kind of copy them with Control C. Let's jump back over here to our untitled function, and let's paste this these nodes into here. So, like I said, I like the functionality that I have here, but I'd like to make this so that, it's reusable, meaning that it's a function that has some input parameters to it. Right now, I'm taking my parameters and just hard coding them with actual values here in these nodes. Like, for instance, this constant is set to number 9. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create some inputs to this function. So if I just double click in an empty area, this takes me to the root level of this function, just as we have been doing here with our substance graph itself. And you'll notice that I have these input parameters. So I'm going to click this plus button here, and this allows me to create a parameter. And so here for the identifier, I'm just going to call this, this is going to be, let's see here, I'll just call it drop down list. And I know the type, I want this to be an integer because I'm actually just going to have this represent, drop down list. So here I'm going to choose list as the label. So I know that, it's just going to give me a way to identify here what type of data is going to come into that. All right, so I've got list. Now let's create another one here for this constant. So again, I'll take my input parameters. I'll click this plus button here, and this creates a new parameter. This time I want to use integer as well. And so for the identifier, I'll just type in const. So I'll just, abbreviate it this way. And then for the label, I'll type in here user value. Or, let's just call it constant value. It's just a little more clear. Okay, so now we have these two parameters. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to hit my space bar, and just as we did here, I want to use a get variable. So again, I'll choose get, and I'm going to choose integer. Now I could just reuse this node here. Now notice if I select this node, we've got our metal colors, but if I click this drop down, you can see that, well, my new values here are available to me. So we just did it on another node. So I'll click this drop down, and I want to choose drop down list. So now what I'm going to do is take this node and just delete it, and I'm going to replace it here with this guy. So we'll set this into A. And now we want to do the same thing. So here I'm going to delete this constant node, get integer. I want to go and grab another integer variable that I've created. And here in my drop down, I'm going to choose this constant. So now I'll take this and plug it into B. So we've basically have taken our two inputs and we've made them generic, meaning that we have two inputs that take two integer types, and we know that one we want to supply a drop-down list and the other we want to supply a constant value that represents what the user would select. Now the rest of everything else is going to work as expected. So now we'll just right-click this, this final conditional if-else node and set this to output. So this is going to finish up our function. Now, for the function name here, I'll just right click and I'll choose rename, and I'm going to name this function. So I'm just going to call it switch underscore int for integer, just so I know it has a switch type functionality between 0 and 1, and it's driven based on integers. All right, so let's jump back here to our rusty metal floor, and let's go back into our blend now, and let's change the opacity here. So let's go into our the function graph for opacity, and let's set this up again. So now in this case, what I could do here is let's just take these nodes and delete them out. So and now I still have these two inputs here. So one of them is the metal color that's coming from that metal color drop-down list. So we still want to be able to select that. That's our drop-down list. And then we have our constant value, which is going to be the value we want the user that we want to check against. So now, instead of creating all these other nodes, what I can do is just come over here to my function and just drag and drop this guy in. So now you can see that I've got my own new custom switch int node, and it takes two inputs here, a list and a constant value, and it's going to output a float, which is what I need, and that float's going to be 0 or 1. So now I can just plug in my values like this, and I'll right click and set this guy as output, and now my function is working again. So just to double check, we'll go back out to our root graph. Let's go over here to our metal colors, and let's see, we've got iron selected. Let's go to custom, because I know that's a darker value, and I switch it here, and of course it is working. And so that's how you can create your own custom functions so that you can reuse them.